What is going on, Fractured Compass fans? Welcome back to the channel, and today we have something a little different for you guys. We're starting off a segment called Bree Hates Horror. As you guys know, my lovely sister here, Bree. Say hi, Bree.
Hi.
Yeah. She loves Halloween. She loves all things spooky, but for some reason, she does not like horror films. She despises them, isn't that right?
I'm terrified of horror films.
But yet she can go to Halloween Horror Nights or Not Scary Farm and just have all these real life monsters jumping out at her. But when it's on a silver screen, she just can't do it. So I've been trying to slowly break her in to the horror movie scene and try to get her into it, and we started off with The Shining. Now, I thought that this was going to be a good movie to start off with. It's slower, there's not a whole lot of jump scares, but there is a lot of gore, and I do know that Bree doesn't like that. Bree, let's just talk about this movie experience.
Let's talk about The Shining, okay? First of all, it takes place in an abandoned hotel. The guy's obviously watching it for the off-season. And I looked over at Mike and I'm like, this is my life. This is what I'm doing right now. Because I'm, guarding a hotel during a closure. And so I get it. But...
Yeah. You literally she sent me a picture of her at an empty bar, and she was just waiting for the ghoul.
Yeah, just waiting for the ghoul to come to tell me to murder everybody. Anyways, and there were certain things I looked at it and I said, Mike, I don't like it. I don't like it. I've never liked it. There's two things. It's not so much it's not so much about the gore. Okay? I obviously can handle gore. I've seen certain shows, i.e. Spartacus, things like that. Very high gore. Watched all of Game of Thrones. Very high gore. It's just how it's placed sometimes, or who it's against. I think that sometimes I have a problem with. So, with that said, yeah, so the dude goes and he watches the hotel, and then the ghouls tell him to kill the people, because apparently they wanted Danny.
This is a great synopsis.
And he goes a little crazy, and then towards the end he chases them down, and then he freezes to death in the hedge. We could have summed that up in about an hour less.
Okay. Okay, now I agree. So I'm someone who loves that movie. I think it is significant in the horror genre. I think a lot of other movies pull from that movie, and so I am shooketh to my very core that you didn't like it.
So I just think it dragged a little bit, and from what we were talking, you were like, there's certain things in the book that would have cleared up some things that weren't in the movie, but obviously Stephen King wrote the book, Stanley Kubrick directed the movie. These are two very, very different horror minds that are taking place here. And I have watched other Kubrick movies. I get his style. It's very, very weird.
Very bizarre.
I understood, because, listening to different documentaries of how Kubrick, worked and things like that, I understood what he was doing. I understood, every time we were in a different corridor, it was kind of, it was very different. The carpet was either the famous carpet, you have on your shirt, or, the other carpet was, a very blue things, and then there were certain things where Danny would go around in his, three-wheeler, his big wheel, which, by the way, I was all like, they make adult ones of those. I want one now.
Where to get some?
I mean, I could guard my hotel in a big wheel. I absolutely could, and nobody would care.
You know what? Honestly, if I rolled up to a hotel and I saw you on a big wheel, I would've been like, you know what? I'm good.
This place is down.
I'm gonna go ahead and leave.
No, but I understand, some of the turns he made that, if you really calculated how the hotel was laid out, wouldn't make sense. So it was kind of disorienting when you looked at that. When he was writing his story in front of the elevators and in that big area. And she, in one scene, Shelley Duvall comes around the corner and she's running through the same area, but he's not there. I understand where it was going, and I understand, what it was trying to do. I just think it could have been summed up in an hour less.
So the general consensus from you is that you think it moved way too slow. You wanted it to be sped up.
I wanted to be sped up, but at the same time, I'm like, like it's a typical like you're somebody's in a secluded area and the ghost, the ghost possesses and gets into the mind of one of the weaker people that are there, and then they go on a killing spree.
Cabin fever.
Ta-da! Like it's the basis of a million other movies.
Okay, well. Whoa.
But not to say that is just the movie. And I get it. So the book, I'm not talking about the book. I just want to clarify, I'm not talking about the book, because I'm sure the book was way more detailed in what was going on. Because one of the things was, well, is it the ghosts inside the hotel that are getting at them? Is it the ghouls inside of the hotel that are getting at them? Or was it the hotel itself that was the entity that was creating these ghouls to talk to the person? And that's where it can get interesting, where it's not a ghost itself that's creating, or a demon itself that's creating the havoc. It's actually the place that's trying to, that has to manifest itself in some way.
And I think that's not what's
manifest itself in some way, because obviously a building can't talk to you, so it has to figure something out.
Well, and I think that's why maybe this movie didn't land right with you, is because in the book it's very much about the ghosts and the spirits, and the hotel itself is alive. But in the movie, Stanley Kubrick didn't really want to focus so much on the ghosts. I mean, really, there's barely any ghosts in it for maybe until like the third act of the film, right? He really wanted to do an examination of what it's like to go into madness. And that's why you have this slow-moving horror film that's just, every scene is just trotting along, because he really wanted you to kind of get this character study of Jack and how he's getting in his own mind and how he is just becoming this horrible, in his own head, evil person, and how it was easily relatable from he got from this point to that point, and how did he get to that point? Does that make sense?
From the get-go, even before they even drove his family up to the hotel, I could already tell he was an asshole.
Okay, but that's the thing.
He was already there.
In the novel, Jack isn't this like goody two-shoes dad. He has a lot of problems, and the thing is about in the Shining novel, you get the whole entire book from the perspective of Jack. So when we get to the movie and Jack Nicholson's portrayal of Jack and how people think that he's already kind of like a mean guy in the beginning, he is like that in the novel. Now, of course, Jack Nicholson just has one of those faces. I think it's especially the eyebrows that just make him look sinister. And I wish that they kind of told Jack Nicholson, okay, let's tone down those eyebrows, sir, because they're evil looking. But with that argument, I think that people forget that in the novel, Jack isn't this. He's got a lot of demons that he's fighting even in the very start, and it's kind of like they make the novel seem like they're going to this hotel as one last ditch effort to save the marriage, to save the relationship. So it's already extremely rocky, and this was just the pushing edge,
And I think that definitely came off in the movie.
Yeah.
It definitely came off in the movie that there was a rift, there was an issue, and her talking about him hurting Danny and things like that. That was an accident. But with the actors, I think Jack Nicholson did an amazing job, because there was times where I'm like, dude, this is making me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Including, especially the part where he was like holding Danny and just talking to him, saying I love you and blah blah, and you're just like, oh my god, do you?
This was Bree's face. I looked over and this was Bree watching that scene.
Yeah. And I've said, if you can make me feel uncomfortable, you can make me hate you, then you did a great job. Because if that's what you were trying to, portray, you did it. You communicated that out of the screen to me, And did Shelley Duvall come off very, very brittle and vulnerable?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely she did. And, Danny was a kid, so, he played his part as a kid.
Yeah.
And he played his part well.
Let's talk about one other thing that I thought was really interesting, and that was a critique of yours. And that was the soundtrack. And Stanley Kubrick's a very interesting guy, right? He doesn't want to use a composer for his films. He doesn't want to hire somebody. He believes in his head that all the music that he needs to make this picture just as he wants it is already out there. He just needs to find it. And so he does a lot of interesting and admittedly bizarre music choices. Like, I agree, they are bizarre. But I think that's why so many people like The Shining, is because of those weird music choices. But you weren't super down with that.
I was okay with it. It didn't bother me as much as I think it bothered Jackie. It bothered Jackie because those drone tones. Now, when we do our own horror films, I use a lot of undertone drone tones, like because it's just that puts people on edge. The drone tones, like run-of-the-mill drone tones, like because we use them in our horror films, horror shorts, I know what they're supposed to do, so I'm kind of immune to them.
They were just annoying.
Yeah.
It was just it was very overbearing when it was intended to be overbearing. So it did a good job. I just don't like it. I like melodies and harmonies and good rhythms. I don't just like getting smashed in the face with
soundtrack.
And I was like literally underneath the TV, like half working, half watching when we were watching it. So it was like
blazing.
Yeah, I couldn't get away from it.
It's also and then one other thing that I found very interesting is, even though you didn't like it, I asked Brie at the very end, so can you see at least why this movie has made such a cultural impact on the horror community? And Brie was like, no. And I want to know why. So like, in your mind, did you just think that like it wasn't a memorable experience? Is that why?
Yeah, oh man, you guys, and I know like the comments are gonna be like, what? But
your opinion's your opinion.
Yeah, I know, but I just don't see the hype. I don't see the hype. I really don't.
Do you think it's aged well?
I don't think like, okay, so the film itself is a little dated, but the Journey into Madness part?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Journey into Madness in the 1970s or whatever is a Journey into Madness in 2016.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like it's going to be the same thing. So yeah, as for what happened and as for like broken relationships, alcoholism, abuse, and things like that, that is so much in the forefront as it was back then as it was today. It's just today people are a little bit more of standing out against it than back in the days, and which is why like Shelley Duvall's character, you just kind of, you didn't talk about it, you know, like you kept up appearances. And nowadays I think people are a little more outspoken, but it absolutely still does happen. And so yes, does the movie age well? Sure, but could we have like
okay. All right. So
cut that hour out.
You know, and it sucks too because you guys know me. Like, I love The Shining. I have a Shining shirt, a Shining mask, and stuff. And so, but I completely understand and respect your opinion. So, Brie, tell the people, out of 5 sleepless nights, how many sleepless nights would you rate this movie?
Like, -1. It was just more of a.
I have one thing we can talk about for The Shining. Can we talk about how heavy those axe hits were? Because apparently Jack Nicholson used to be a volunteer firefighter. Like, you could tell those scenes he was...
Well, they actually had to reinforce a door.
Yeah, putting some oomph behind it.
That was the one thing I was all like, that door with that axe should have just blown up, because that was a heavy axe, and those are very, very light doors.
Well, the first door on the first take did blow up,
Yeah,
and they were like, okay, go reinforce some doors because Jack knows what he's doing. There you go.
So okay, let's talk about the horror aspect though, instead of like the more psychological aspect.
Okay.
Did you have one more thing that you wanted?
Yeah, the camera movement. We like studying stuff.
Yeah.
Color
And I
theory,
know.
music, camera movement. The camera movement when he was swinging that axe,
Brilliant.
going with him back and forth and making those smooth transitions, to me was a brilliant director choice. Because it made you feel like you were being swung, if that makes sense.
You followed the violence.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
You followed the violence.
You totally caught that. By that time I was all like, well, he's after her with an axe, the movie's almost over. I know, I'm just gonna piss Mike off.
No, you're not making me mad. I get it. It's not everyone's cup of tea. Surprisingly, not a lot of people like The Shining, so I get it. I'm not shocked by it. I thought you would have liked it, mainly because it's just not in your face in terms of like jump scares and stuff like that. But again, this is just I'm getting to understand your movie tastes.
And I think something that also confuses me is that he added scenes in there that I guess are pertinent to the book, and you would understand why that scene was in there. If you've never read the book, you're like, why am I looking at a bear and a dude through the hole? What's up with room 270 or 237 or 273 or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Like, what happened with why is the lady in the bathtub? Why is she dead? Why is she brought, like, you know, like there's just certain things that he added where you're like, but I mean, like, even the lady in the bathtub, I guess you could say he was slipping into madness, but like, how did she die?
Well, and again, reading the novel is going to give you all kinds of context.
Right, and I get that, but I'm not basing it off of what I read in a book.
No, yeah.
I'm just looking at the movie going...
It's almost like he took a bunch of elements from the book and then something that he just wanted to do and just kind of like put him in a pot and mixed them.
And that, I honestly will agree, because I have seen documentaries on Kubrick, is very Kubrick. To just put something in there and have you go, what?
Yeah, he likes making you question things.
Like, what did that have to do with anything? And then maybe you drawing your own conclusions. But to me, I'm like...
Okay. Alright guys, you heard it here first. Bree's first horror film on this segment, and it's a -1 on the 5-star rating. So, again, thank you guys very much for watching this channel. Bree, I'm excited to show you more horror films in the future.
You're gonna see me cry one day.
And I think we're gonna try to figure out a way to maybe show your reactions on some parts, but I don't know how we're gonna make that work. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah. So thanks again, you guys, for watching. Please subscribe if you guys haven't. A like is always appreciated.
Always be ready.
Because you never know where your compass is gonna take you.
Stay safe.
Give me the bat, Marge.
Give me the bat, Marge. Give me the bat. Stop swinging the bat.
It's the Shinin. Do you want to get sued?